Hi everybody. I couldn't sleep very well because I was thinking about one of my heroes. So I decided to go to one of my favorite places and think. And fortunately, even though it's not a full moon, the position of the moon is straight overhead. So the trail is shining bright, easy to follow. And to keep my kids happy, I have with me bear spray, just in case somebody might come and say hi. So, what's the definition of a hero? Well, one of mine is somebody who's had a huge positive impact on my life. And that's the case of this individual. His name's Gary. And on this episode, I'm going to share a story about the portion of my life where this hero, Gary, had atomic blast influence on me. And it happened at CV, which is one of the biggest lights that you see in that frame. So once upon a time, I walked into the front door of CV. I was just shy of 40 years old. I had been an aspiring aerospace engineer at our local JPL for 10 or 12 years. And I plopped down in Linda Evans' office and I said, I want to be a teacher when I grow up, a high school teacher. And that was the beginning of a long, great journey that I'm still on. And at that point, I went and took the CBEST test, barely passed it, and I taught 2 classes. I kept my JPL job, so I was part-time. And I remember at the end of the year, I was told that I had to start working towards a teaching credential, a permanent teaching credential. And at that time, Gary Talbert was the principal of the high school and Linda was a co-principal. And I remember walking into their office and saying, at the end of the year, saying, you know, this was great. I had a really good time. But I have 3 kids and I also am working at JPL and there's really no room in my schedule to go back to school. So this is great, but I can't swing this. And they said, wait, don't go anywhere. We got this. So the co-principals, Gary and Linda, they set off on this mission to help me get my credential legally. And a side note on Gary and Linda, I have never seen a management team work as seamlessly as they did. I think of like Simon and Garfunkel and Crosby, Stills and Nash and these groups of people that make beautiful music together, but yet you hear about the infighting and the bickering and the egos, who did what. And these guys, Gary and Linda, they were the complete opposite of that. And I am so thankful for that because I think it was instrumental in pulling this feat off. So the mountain movers set out to get me something called an Eminence credential. And what that entailed was putting together a portfolio of awards, recommendation letters, filling out a very detailed application that proved eminence, quote unquote, in my field, which for me was engineering. And this culminated with Gary and I having to fly up to Sacramento and make a presentation before the California Board of Education. So it was a Thursday, and Gary and I were flying up to Sacramento on a Southwest flight, just like that one, on this side of the plane. And at that point in our relationship, he was the boss and I was the employee. and I had a huge amount of respect for him. I really liked the way he drove the ship, and I would say I had a healthy amount of fear. Like, I wanted to impress him, but there's nothing like taking a trip with somebody and getting to know him a little better. And I remember we were sitting on our Southwest flight, just like that plane right there, and we hadn't pulled away from the tarmac yet, and I wanted to, we both were a little anxious, and I think it was in part a little like we didn't know each other at that level, and also we didn't know what was coming. We were going to go before the Board of Education, and what did that mean? And so I was like, I wanted to shoot the shit a little, so I said, Gary, my dad, he works for a subdivision of the NTSB, and it turns out that these planes can only pressurize and depressurize a finite number of times before the skin on the fuselage will give way, like that Aloha Airlines incident happened. And he looked at me and sat up straight in his seat, and I pushed a button. Get to know ya. So yeah, apparently I hit the fear of flying button, and I didn't mean to. I was just trying to talk. But from that day on, when we would sit around and reminisce, that story would always come back, and we would laugh, and yeah, it was cool. So we took a cab from the airport to the state capitol, and we shared with each other that we were a little anxious at the urinals, and then we walked into this big sort of dark conference room that had the state school board present, amongst them Doris Minor. Thank you, Doris. And then Gary delivered this speech that was on the level of the Gettysburg Address. It was just beautiful, and I remember standing there beside him while he talked, thinking, who is he talking about? Because it was just glowing, and I was so humbled and so thankful. They asked me a question after he finished, and it was a very friendly interchange, and then they literally handed me my credential, and the rest is history. And the COCO principles, they did magic. It was just a wonderful, awesome thing that they did for me. And later that night, after we both went home and changed our shirts, we were back at school, and he was standing right here. This used to be the front door of CV. He had a big smile on his face, and he winked at me as I walked by him. It was back to school night. And I remember thinking, there's 3,000 kids here that he's responsible for, and over 100 faculty and staff. And yet he had time enough to dedicate a day to me to go up to Sacramento so that he could help me get my credential. And I am so thankful for that, and it still is mind-blowing for what he did for me. So Gary had a brilliant management style. He would tell us at our faculty meetings, I don't care if the President of the United States walks into your classroom. I do not want you to miss a beat teaching. Just keep going. And what he would do is he would randomly visit our classrooms unannounced, and he'd only stay in there for 30 seconds or a minute. And in that time, he would size up what's happening, and he was brilliant. He could tell exactly what's going on in just a short period of time. And then, if he liked what he saw, he would leave you a note in your mailbox that afternoon. And guess what? I have all my Gary notes. Here's one of them. And the brilliance in this management style, I would always be teaching as though, I wonder if Gary's going to come in today. What does that do? It makes you always want to be at the top of your game. And I still teach that way. I just imagine that any moment he could walk in my room and I want to have the best things I can possibly have going on in my classroom. And I just thought that was great. So we lost Gary this last week. His body gave out, but his spirit lives on. And I will forever teach my class as though he could walk in any minute. But I ache. My heart aches. My heart aches with gratitude. I am just overwhelmed by how thankful I am for what he's done for me. You know, he took a chance on a 40-year-old aerospace engineer that wanted to be a teacher when he grew up. And I look at the professional happiness and satisfaction that I've achieved over the last 20 years, and it wouldn't have happened without him. So Gary has a few favorite expressions. One of them was, "The truth is really important to me." And boy, have I used that before in the hallway, trying to help a kid out find the right answer. Another, the same guy that says yes is the one who says no. Brilliant. But the one I associate with them, which is so true, is it's great to be a Falcon.